Below, the expressions of Gandalf and Tyson, who rushed to Jason's side, changed. They thought that Jason and Renault's last night attack on the Perret family mansion had been exposed, and they suddenly showed extremely anxious looks on their faces. What should we do? The two of them were anxious and looked at Jason aside. Although Master Lay is strong, the two of them don't think that Renault alone can withstand the three top masters of the Perret family. Not to mention Daimler, the mid-level Imperial spiritual master. Even if Nixon and Vincent joined forces, they are far from being able to resist Mr. Lay. However, when they saw Jason's eyes, the two of them couldn't help but froze. At this moment, Jason's face showed no trace of worry. There was still a hint of disdain and a sneer on the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were full of confidence. Jason had actually expected the current situation, but in his imagination, the first one who couldn't help but come should be Pierre of the Curie family. After all, his appearance as a master of elixirs had the greatest impact on the Curie family, a family of elixirs. Moreover, in the previous competition, he had won so many materials from the Curie family. But what he didn't expect was that the Perret family actually found such a high-sounding reason. Jason didn't think that Vincent and the others really knew that he and his father had attacked the Perret family at night. He was a little suspicious at most. That's all. Jason's extremely confident expression immediately calmed the hearts of both Gandalf and Tyson. Haha. In mid-air, Renault suddenly laughed, and then he looked at Daimler in front of him with sharp eyes like a razor blade. Fart. Renault said coldly, everyone knows that the ones who attacked your Perret family's mansion were two low-level fire-type Imperial spiritual masters. This is the news that your Perret family yourself spread, and now they say it's us. Please, the frame-up should be framed better. Whether it is a frame-up, we will find out if we take it back and ask. Daimler's face turned cold and he said nothing. The spiritual power in his body suddenly burst out, and a green light lingered in his right hand, turning into numbers. 10 green vines with spiritual runes flowing on their surfaces were grabbed by Renault with a wave of his hand. The purpose of his trip was to bring Renault and Jason back to the family. Now that there was such a group of people surrounding him, he didn't want to continue talking nonsense. As soon as Daimler took action, the sky was suddenly enveloped by a strong wood-type spiritual power. The powerful 7th-level intermediate spiritual power came overwhelmingly toward Renault, surging. Perret family, you are seeking death. Renault suddenly shouted. Countless rays of misty golden light quickly shot out from his body. As he slashed with his right hand, a golden sword rainbow suddenly condensed in front of him. Targeted at Daimler. Golden Spirit Master? Seeing Renault's spiritual attributes, Daimler couldn't help but be startled. Did he know that the two fire spiritual masters who attacked his family were two fire spiritual masters, but he couldn't control that much at the moment. Investigation, the attacker was just a purpose for him to come. The most important thing was to capture the genius alchemist that day. This little low-level Imperial spiritual master actually dares to resist. You are really overestimating your capabilities. Daimler sneered, but even though he didn't care, the spiritual power on the green vines surged instantly, making him even more powerful. Among the 5 elements, metal defeats wood. He didn't want to lose face in front of the people of the Chaos Territory because he was careless and couldn't capture the opponent. At the moment when the golden sword rainbow was about to come into contact with the green vines, Renault shouted loudly. The spiritual power on the golden sword rainbow surged instantly. Under the control of Renault, he aimed at the countless green vines and stirred and cut them. With a twist of bang bang bang, the countless green vines, condensed by the wood spiritual power, were torn apart like strips of cloth in an instant, and the broken green vines suddenly scattered with a slight explosion. Countless wood spiritual elements dissipated into the air. A golden light suddenly flashed in Renault's eyes, and he pointed with his right hand. After cutting through the countless vines, the golden sword rainbow shot directly at Daimler not far away without any pause. Whoops! The high-speed flying of the golden sword rainbow tore the air apart. Renault and Daimler were less than 100 meters apart, leaving only a golden afterimage in the sky. The golden sword rainbow came in an instant. In front of Daimler. No. Daimler's face suddenly changed color, and his eyes were horrified. As he roared, a green wooden spiritual shield instantly formed in front of him. On the surface of the shield, a spirit with a human face and a vine body was engraved. Beast, flowing with misty green light. Open it for me, boom! In the roar of Renault, the golden sword rainbow directly hit the middle of the shield, a huge roar sounded, and countless cracks appeared on the green shield instantly, and then the cracks collapsed. In the process, more than half of the energy on the golden sword rainbow was consumed. After breaking through the shield, it struck directly on the spiritual armor on Daimler's body. Daimler's figure retreated hundreds of meters in the sky, his face instantly turned extremely pale, and a mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. Vincent, didn't you say that this guy is just a low-level imperial spiritualist? Go to hell with your mother's low-level imperial spiritualist. Daimler stabilized his body and spoke angrily. Because Vincent said that Renault was just a low-level imperial spiritual master, and at the beginning, Renault also deliberately restrained his aura. When the battle came, the fluctuations in the spiritual power emitted were not large, so Daimler also regarded this Renault as a low-level imperial spiritual master. If Daimler hadn't seen that Renault had gold spiritual power and increased his spiritual power output, I'm afraid the previous blow would have seriously injured him. However, even so, in his haste, he still suffered a lot of damage in his body. There was quite a shock. After one hit, Renault didn't pause at all. The 7th level intermediate spiritual power in his body surged out again, and countless golden rays of light surged out of him, standing proudly in the sky like a golden armored god of war. A golden giant sword composed of golden spiritual power quickly condensed on top of Renault's head, and like a substance, it aimed at Daimler not far away and slashed away again. Boom! The extremely powerful golden spiritual power covered the sky and blocked out the sun like roaring waves, flowing and surging in the air. For a while, even the scorching sun seemed to have lost its color in an instant. Vincent and Nixon on the side suddenly changed their expressions. If they thought Renault might be the assassin at the beginning, then at this moment, they no longer had this idea in their minds, not to mention the attributes of Renault at this moment and the assassin at the time. Different, even in terms of strength, the two are worlds apart. 7th level intermediate imperial spiritual master, both of them widened their eyes, and Vincent's mind was in a state of confusion for several hours. In the meantime, when Renault burst out with momentum, Vincent clearly remembered that the other party was indeed a low-level imperial spiritualist. But after only a few hours, how could he become an intermediate imperial spiritualist? Could it be that the other party really restrained his momentum? His grandmother, don't bully others too much. So what if you are a gold-type intermediate imperial spiritual master? I will still capture you. Daimler was furious, and a green soft whip suddenly appeared in his hand. As he swung it, it transformed into a green python that was tens of meters long and wrapped around the golden sword in the sky. Boom, boom, boom! A sword and a python clashed dozens of times in an instant, and successive explosions continued to be heard from the air. Powerful spiritual power splashed horizontally, stirred in all directions, and splashed on the houses below, immediately destroying those houses. A corner of the house was smashed into powder. Haha, don't think that because you have gold spiritual power, you are my opponent, Daimler. The spirit python whip in my hand is a mysterious spiritual weapon. Let's see what you can do to me. Daimler was rampant in the sky. Laugh out loud. Really? Renault sneered. Buzz buzz buzz! 5 spiritual rings emerged from Renault's head, suspended behind his head, trembling continuously, and countless golden streams of light condensed into a golden sword rainbow in front of Renault. The 5th spiritual ring above his head suddenly trembled, and the phantom of a ferocious spiritual beast with golden eyes stared ahead, its cold eyes that seemed to pierce the sky. A 5th level gold-type spiritual beast, the sky-piercing golden armored beast. Renault's eyes flashed sharply. 12 golden ripples wrapped around the golden sword rainbow in front of him from Renault's body. The golden sword rainbow that was originally condensed from simple golden spiritual power instantly turned into a golden cone, and on the surface of the cone, 12 complex spiritual waves appeared. The ring kept glowing and flowing. Skybreaking cone Renault was suspended in midair and waved his hand slightly. Hold head high, the sky-shattering cone penetrated the space, turned into a golden light, and shot directly towards it. The speed instantly reached an incredible level. Wherever it went, the air was like a disturbed lake, with golden ripples rippling out. His grandmother's, a guard, has 5 spiritual rings. What kind of world is this? Sensing this powerful power, Daimler's expression changed. He roared, and he waved the spiritual python whip in his hand sharply. The length of meters skyrocketed to hundreds of meters, entrenched in front of Daimler. Spiritual python vortex formation rumble. A huge roar sounded, and the spiritual python vortex formation, composed of the spiritual python whip in Daimler's hand, exploded in circles under the bombardment of the skybreaking cone. The huge penetrating force generated by the high-speed rotation of the sky cone was like destroying everything, and it penetrated directly into the spiritual python formation. What? Impossible! Daimler only had time to be shocked in his mind, and his figure instantly retreated. At the same time, all the spiritual power in his body spat out desperately, entangling towards the golden skybreaking cone, but he still could not stop the inexorable force. A sky-shattering cone that can withstand the force. After breaking through dozens of obstacles, the boom skybreaking cone finally bombarded Daimler's chest. Daimler retreated hundreds of meters, with a look of extreme horror on his face. A hole deep enough to show the bones appeared in his chest. The 2 innermost ribs were also cracked, and blood spurted out from his mouth. "Vincent, Nixon, take down that Jace quickly," Daimler said in horror, his face filled with horror. This elder Daimler actually lost. We are not wrong, right? The guard next to Master Jace is actually a 7th-level intermediate Imperial Spiritual Master. Oh my god, what situation? Impossible, impossible. The battle that took place above the Kang's family had already attracted the attention of countless people in the City of Chaos. Daimler roared in his mouth, and his chest, when the blood was dripping, all the people below had their eyes widened with horror on their faces. Although they were also very dissatisfied with the actions of the Per family, they never thought that Daimler, the elder of the Per family, would lose. Daimler, who is that? One of the 3 major myths of the Chaos territory, the spiritual pillar and figure of the entire Per family, and a 7th-level intermediate Imperial Spiritual Master. In the hearts of the people of the Chaos City, that could represent the most invincible existence of the Chaos territory, but now, they were defeated like this under the protection of Master Najis? And he was defeated so neatly and without any sloppiness. Everyone below was instantly shocked. This made it difficult for them to believe for a moment. Whoosh, while everyone below was stunned, as Daimler shouted, Vincent and Nixon, who were originally flying in the air, turned into 2 streams of light and aimed at them on the ground. Jason shot away. Lei's strength far exceeded their expectations. The current plan was to take down Jace in order to alleviate the Great Elder's urgent situation. They were also aware of the Great Elder's extremely anxious roar. Tisk! Jason suddenly opened a pair of lightning and electric wings behind his back. Amidst the sound of electric current, Jason didn't hesitate at all and soared into the sky towards Renault not far away. This is a flying skill. Both Vincent and Nixon had a look of surprise on their faces, and then their expressions became even more gloomy. The more Jason had up his sleeve, the more fearful they were. However, they were shocked, but the speed of the 2 people did not slow down at all. The 2 strings of light turned and passed through the air, aiming at Jason again and fiercely swiping at him. You 2 are looking for death. Not far away, Renault didn't care about taking any action against Daimler. His face was burning with anger. Amidst the loud shouts, 2 golden giant swords that quickly condensed were already aimed at the 2 of them and slashed at them. Go! I'll block the attack, Nixon, catch that kid. Vincent's eyes were red, and he roared angrily. The fiery red light on his body suddenly burned, and he stopped in front of the two giant swords. The two of them also knew that as long as they caught Jace, they could threaten Nale. Otherwise, when the elder was seriously injured, even if the three of them joined forces, they would probably only be able to draw with Nale. Vincent, whose whole body was burning with flames, suddenly collided with the two golden giant swords. Boom, humph, the huge energy surged and dispersed, forming a spiritual hurricane around Vincent. Vincent's face suddenly flushed, and a low groan came out of his throat, and his body was like a ball being shot away, flying back tens of meters in the air. Bad boy, let's see where you are going. On the other side, Nixon had already come behind Jason, with a ferocious smile on his face. As he flipped his palms, Cyan Wind spiritual power overflowed, aiming at Jason and grabbing him quickly. Come, with a sharp hissing sound that breaks through the air. Jason's lightning wings would be almost the same as an ordinary 7th level low-level Emperor spiritual master after he reaches the 5th level sect spiritual master. But now he is a 4th level low-level heavenly spiritual master. Faced with the so-called same level, Nixon, the fastest wind-based imperial spiritual master, naturally has difficulty escaping. Far away in the sky, just when Nixon flew behind Jason and was about to capture Jason, who was flying past at high speed, suddenly turned his head. Buzz buzz, 3 golden spirit rings quickly emerged from Jason's head and floated behind Jason's head. At the same time, a terrifying spirit beast phantom with 1 main head and 9 tiny heads appeared above Jason, staring coldly at Nixon in front of him. Especially the blood-red face in the middle of the 9 small heads. The cold blood-colored eyes are like Shura ghosts from hell. One look at it will make people feel fear in their hearts. What the hell? Nixon couldn't help but be surprised. A void of mental fluctuation shot out directly from Jason's eyes and disappeared into Nixon's body. Nixon, who was flying at high speed, was shaken all over, and his eyes suddenly became dull and lifeless. However, in just a moment, Nixon's eyes regained clarity. The level difference between the two is really huge, and the 7th level Emperor Spirit Master is a high-level professional who has begun to enter the realm of all-round physical improvement. Mentally, he is also a step ahead of the 6th level Master Spirit Master. Therefore, Jason's soul shock can only interfere with the opponent for a blink of an eye. But this blink of an eye was enough for Jason. A black heavy sword suddenly appeared in Jason's hand at the next moment. The fiery red spiritual light flashed on Jason's body. The 3rd golden spiritual ring with a red edge trembled. Jason, the black heavy sword in his hand, had already been aimed at Nixon and struck down hard. You brat, if you don't run away, you dare to attack me. You're simply looking for death. Although he didn't understand what happened before, Jason, who saw the fluctuations of the spiritual power of a 4th level heavenly spirit master on his body, actually dared to attack him. Taking action himself, Nixon couldn't help but reveal a sneer on his face. He ignored Jason's attack, but a Cyan Wind spiritual armor emerged from his body. With a flip of his hand, he grabbed Jason's shoulder directly. Boom! Jason's black heavy sword directly hit Nixon's chest without any resentment. Haha! Nixon couldn't help but laugh. The 4th level spiritual attack released by the 4th level heavenly spiritual master was like an itch for him, a 7th level imperial spiritualist, without any damage. However, the next moment, his expression changed. Boom! In Nixon's perception, the 4th level spiritual power released from the heavy sword that bombarded his body exploded like a wave. The bombardment of 4th level spiritual power that started earlier, in the next moment, but it has mutated to the 5th level of spiritual power. What surprised Nixon even more was that the second bombardment was not over yet. Under the bombardment, the 3rd spiritual power exploded again. This last spiritual power suddenly surged to the 6th level of spiritual power. Strength of. If Nixon had been prepared for it, although the 6th level spiritual power was powerful, it would not be able to cause much damage to him, a 7th-level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master. However, because he was eager to catch Jason, he had no hope for Jason. Sen ignored the previous attacks and only formed a simple layer of spiritual armor on his body. His carelessness immediately caused him to suffer a big loss. Powerful spiritual power exploded on his body surface, and the spiritual power armor on his body instantly collapsed. His face suddenly turned pale, the robe on his chest torn apart, and a low muffled sound came from his mouth. Originally, with Jason's strength, even if he used Feng Yan's triple wave, it would be impossible to cause much damage to Nixon, but the latter was really underestimating the enemy. Jason, who has now reached the 4th-level low-level Heavenly Spirit Master, the 1st level of Feng Yan's 3rd level of power is comparable to the full blow of a 4th-level intermediate-level Heavenly Spiritist, and the 2nd level has reached the level of the 5th-level intermediate sect. The Spiritual Master's full blow, as for this 3rd level, is the full blow of the terrifying 6th-level intermediate Spiritual Master. Fortunately, although he underestimated the enemy, Nixon still formed a layer of spiritual armor on the surface of his body in time. Otherwise, instead of just suffering some insignificant minor injuries like now, it is not impossible to be seriously injured. Okay, brat, I've underestimated you. Nixon raised his head fiercely, and his old face became extremely ferocious at this moment. Jason's previous attack had caused him a hidden loss, and he couldn't help but anger arose in his heart and roared out from his mouth. Compared with the pain, the mental rage almost made Nixon lose his mind. Above this city of chaos, in front of countless residents of the city of chaos, a dignified 7th-level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master, wanted to catch a boy under the age of 20. Not only did he fail, but he was tricked by the brat. Face, it's really too humiliating. That was the golden limit spirit ring before, right? I also saw the 3 limit spirit rings. What exactly is the phantom of the spirit beast? The fear of the phantom? The crowd started talking among themselves. The extremely angry Nixon quickly adjusted the boiling spiritual energy in his face, raised his head, and wanted to see where Jason was. However, what greeted him was a golden sword rainbow packed with sharp energy. Whoops! The golden sword rainbow was like a shooting star, instantly arriving in front of Nixon. Not good. His expression suddenly changed, and his figure suddenly turned into a breeze. However, the sharp sword rainbow that was as fast as lightning still grazed his right waist. His figure swayed in the air, his face was extremely pale, and on his right waist a huge gap was spraying blood outwards. Nixon quickly poured a bottle of healing potion into his mouth, and as the spiritual power circulated, the gap slowly closed. However, at this moment, Nixon seemed to be safe and sound on the surface, but the previous bombardment of the golden sword rainbow had penetrated a huge amount of golden spiritual power into Nixon's body, wreaking havoc inside Nixon's body. Nixon spent a lot of effort, and finally the golden spiritual power was completely removed from the body. But after such a pause, Jason and Renault had already merged together. This brat. Nixon gritted his teeth and gritted his teeth. Helpless, he had no choice but to turn around and join Vincent and Daimler. In the sky, 2 figures on one side and 3 figures on the other were facing each other in the distance, with an overwhelming momentum, just like the coming violent storm. Under the peak potion, Gandalf and Tyson looked at everything that had happened before in astonishment, with a wry smile on their faces. If you ask who is most familiar with Jason and Reno in the Chaos territory, it is the 2 of them. However, they never imagined that Jace and Lei were like 2 bottomless pits. They just thought they were against each other. When he knew the other party extremely well, the other party showed strength far beyond his expectation. It turns out that Master Lei is so powerful. I thought. Tyson smiled bitterly. He was still extremely worried before, but now he no longer had any worries in his heart. What's surprising is not only Master Lei, but also Master Jace. He had just been promoted to the 4th level of low-level Heavenly Spirit Master when he was in Santa Fe City, but Gandalf on the side also shook his head and smiled bitterly, and looked at each other with Tyson. Take a look. When Patriarch Vincent and the second elder of the Perret family attacked Jason, both of them were prepared to stand in front of Jason, but they did not expect that Jason would fly into the sky all of a sudden, and the moment Nixon had caught Jason, both of them had their hearts in their throats. However, they didn't expect that Jason not only wasn't caught, but also tricked the second elder Nixon. Watching such a thrilling scene, both of them couldn't help but break out in cold sweats. Great Elder, what should we do? In the sky, the three imperial spiritual masters of the Per family gathered together. If it were normal, this force would be powerful enough to roar the chaos territory, but now, it seems a little embarrassed. What should I do? How do I know? Daimler looked at Vincent with an extremely angry face. Is this the low-level imperial spiritualist you are talking about? A low-level imperial spiritualist who is stronger than me? Vincent was also extremely depressed. Originally, they wanted to find out whether the other party was the last night attacker, so they took advantage of it and brought all Jace and Laid back to the family. As for the rest, they will talk about it separately. But what they didn't expect was that the three evil wolves bullied Lay, who was just a lone wolf. Unexpectedly, when they ran over to take a look, the lone wolf suddenly turned into a tiger, and after a few back and forth, they killed their leader. Daimler was injured, and even Vincent and Nixon each received some minor injuries. Your Excellency, our Perret family has investigated clearly and found out that these two were not the imperial spiritual masters that day. Please forgive me for the offense I caused earlier. Vincent pretended to be calm. For the current plan, this is the only way they can do it. Okay, let's go back first. With the Great Elder injured, even if the three of them join forces, they may not be able to take advantage. In fact, in terms of real strength, Renault is not much better than Daimler. After all, Renault has only been promoted to the low-level and intermediate Imperial Spiritual Master for a few hours, while Daimler has been an intermediate Imperial Spiritual Master for quite some time. The reason why Renault is strong is because of the body transformed by the regeneration potion. This alone is enough to make up for the gap between the two. Moreover, Renault's spiritual attribute is the metal type, while Daimler's is the wood type, restraining the opponent in spiritual power, and coupled with the spiritual power amplitude attached to Renault's 5 spiritual rings, he far surpassed Daimler in terms of strength. Is the investigation clear? Please forgive me? Haha, Renault couldn't help laughing out loud, with a hint of disdain on his face, and said indifferently, "You can't touch me at will, just one of us. Is it okay to forgive me? Okay, in the future I will often go to your pair family to kill people, so please forgive me." Haha, the spiritual masters of the City of Chaos below heard Renault's words, they couldn't help laughing. Under the prestige of the Perret family, although they didn't dare to do anything, they hoped that Jace's side could win. They couldn't help but feel funny when they heard Renault's words. The Perret family is too shameless, isn't it? How can you say such idiotic things? Their faces couldn't help showing bursts of ridicule, but their feelings towards the Perret family were even more disdainful. Whoosh whoosh at this moment, the sound of flying through the sky suddenly came from the distance. Elder Daimler, Brother Lay, why are you two in conflict? Figures flew quickly from all directions in the distance. There were 10 figures in total. Each of these 10 people showed surging momentum. 8 of them are 7th-level low-level Imperial Spiritual Masters, and there is an old man wearing a white robe and a black-haired old man wearing an earthy yellow Spiritual Master uniform with gold edges. Their aura is much stronger than the others. It seems that they should be the 2 intermediate Imperial Spiritual Masters from the Bella family and the Curie family. These 10 people are all the powerful Emperor Spiritual Masters owned by the 8 major families in the territory of Chaos. 7 of them, Jason and Renault, had already seen them when they were in the trading center today. They are 7 of the 8 major families. The patriarchs of the family are all gathered together at this moment. Seeing these 10 people, many people from the City of Chaos who had gathered below were all stunned. All the imperial spiritual masters in the entire Chaos territory gathered together. They, the people, had never even thought about this kind of thing, let alone seeing it before. Renault's expression couldn't help but froze slightly. With his spiritual knowledge, he had already discovered that when Daimler and the others came to the sky to drink loudly above his mansion, there were countless pairs of eyes all over the chaotic city. They paid attention, and after the battle between themselves and the Perret family came to an end, these guys suddenly appeared. "Oh, isn't this the Daimler of the Perret family? What's going on? Why do I think you don't look so good? Is there something wrong with your practice recently? Do you want me to help you heal it?" Among the crowd, there was a man wearing a suit. The intermediate imperial spiritual master in white robes exclaimed as if he had suddenly discovered a new continent. "Humph, Herbert, get out of the way." Daimler's face was ashen. He was so embarrassed in front of these old rivals and friends, which made Daimler extremely angry. "Master Jace, Senior Lay, let me introduce you." In the crowd, Clara, the patriarch of the Bella family, brought the white-robed old man to the front of Jason and the two of them, and said with a smile on his face, "This is Herbert, the great elder of our Bella family, the great elder. This is Master Jace who prepared the imperial elixir today, and his achievements in the elixir shocked the Chaos territory. And next to him is this person. It's Senior Lay. Haha, indeed a hero comes from a young age. Master, I have also heard of your deeds. I admire you, I admire you." Herbert laughed loudly. Master Jace, Senior Lay at this time, the heads of the 8 major families not far away also came to say hello. Even though they had lost a lot of materials to Jason in the afternoon, their faces were still full of joy at this moment. He smiled as if nothing happened this afternoon. It was really the strength that Renault showed earlier that shocked them. If Renault is just a low-level imperial spiritualist, these are the clan leaders of low-level imperial spiritualists, and there may still be some Xiaojiujiu in their hearts. But before, Renault injured Daimler in a moment with a shocking gesture, but it made him these low-level imperial spiritual masters felt a chill in their hearts. "Elder Herbert, everyone, we'll talk about everyone's matters later. Let me finish dealing with the matters with the Perret family first," Renault said directly and indifferently. Herbert and others were stunned. "Senior Lay, I think the Perret family caused such a fuss because their family was attacked a few days ago. Since the other party has confirmed that you are not the one who attacked their family at night, why not let this matter be done like this?" "Forget it," someone in the crowd persuaded. It was Linus of the Carl family, the thin dark man who stopped Jason and the others in the trading center. "Just forget it? Who do you think you are? You dare to speak in front of me?" Renault looked at the other party with cold eyes, with a trace of disdain in his eyes. "Humph, this Perret family has nothing to do with me, but they dared to treat me before Master Jess takes action. If I don't take action, what will happen to my master?" Your Excellency, Daimler and others not far away also always focused their attention on Renault. After hearing Renault's words, Daimler's face immediately changed. After a while, it's better to leave some room for human beings. Although you are strong, our Perret family is not afraid of trouble. If the 3 of us join forces, I'm afraid you can only protect yourself. While speaking, Daimler and the other 3 people, there was a lot of tyrannical spiritual power coming out of his body. "Oh, really?" Jason had a half-smile expression on his face, and with a flick of his right hand, 2 bottles of elixir appeared in front of everyone. These 2 bottles of elixir have appeared in the trading center before. I think you all know the efficacy of these 2 bottles of elixir, right? Jason said calmly and put the 2 bottles of elixir into Renault's hands. The expressions of everyone present could not help but change. These 2 bottles of spiritual potion are 2 of the 21 bottles of spiritual potion prepared by Jason. They are both of the 6th level. One of them is called the Violent Emperor's Potion. Just like its name, this Violent Emperor's Potion can make people. The combat effectiveness of a 7th level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master was instantly increased by half, while the combat effectiveness of a 7th-level intermediate Imperial Spiritual Master was instantly increased by 2 levels. The other bottle is a 6th-level high-grade peak potion. Its effect is also extremely simple. It can allow a spiritual master below the 7th-level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master to take it, and the spiritual power and spiritual consciousness in the body can be maintained for an hour. Be in peak condition without worrying about the consumption of spiritual power. Although the effect on the 7th-level Intermediate Emperor Spiritual Master is relatively weak, after taking it, under the effect of the peak potion, the Intermediate Emperor Spiritual Master can only release 1 or 2 sure-killing spiritual skills once or twice, but he can release them at least 3 to 5 times more. It can be said that as long as Renaud took these 2 bottles of elixir at this moment, the 3 Daimler people could have fought to a draw with Renaud. Just look at the power of the previous skybreaking cone. As long as Renaud releases another 3 or 5 more skybreaking cones, not to mention Vincent and Nixon, even Daimler, a mid-level Imperial Spirit Master, will be defeated today. I'm afraid he will also die. Your Excellency, wait a minute. As soon as the 2 bottles of elixir appeared, Daimler and others suddenly showed a trace of panic on their faces and spoke hurriedly. How could we forget that Jace is a master of elixirs? Daimler and others laughed bitterly in their hearts. They were able to maintain their aura before, but now they have completely withered. Daimler, what else do you have to say? Renaud said indifferently in midair. Daimler said with a wry smile, this what happened today is the fault of our Perret family. Our Perret family has apologized to you too. Here are some spirit cards to compensate you too. Daimler waved his hand, and 5 spirit cards engraved with exquisite spirit patterns flew over from his hand. Renaud stretched out his hand to pick them up. These are 5 unnamed spirit cards. The cards are the same as those given to Jason by the Kang's family. Each card contains 10 million spiritual coins. 5 cards are 50 million. This is almost half of the property of the Radigan family in the Kingdom of Orlando. It is really not a small sum. Ha, 50 million. Renaud sneered twice on his face, which made the 3 of Daimler tremble. Elder Daimler, I heard that your family still has some rare materials. Daimler's face suddenly changed, and there was a hint of anger in his eyes. What? Renaud's eyes were cold, and a threatening aura surged out of him, full of murderous intent and extremely sharp. Ahem, it's okay. Brother Lay, don't be excited. Sensing the aura emanating from Renaud, Daimler's expression changed again, and he hurriedly said, yes, my family still has some materials. Master Jace and Lay, if you don't mind me, I'll send someone over right away. Renaud sneered twice, since the elder of Daimler said it was a misunderstanding. I, Lay, am not a fussy person, so let's forget about it. But Renaud, his eyes full of murderous intent, passed over everyone present, and he said sternly, if anyone dares to have any crooked thoughts about my master again, I, Lay, will destroy his entire family even if I die, leaving no one behind. Although it is close to September and it is the hottest time of the year, Renaud's words suddenly made everyone present feel chills in their hearts, and their whole bodies felt cold. With the strength he has shown, let alone the 5 major families, even the 3 major families with intermediate Imperial Spiritual Masters will not be able to withstand his wrath. Haha, that's natural. Herbert laughed and said, with Master Jace's presence, the attainments in elixir science and Brother Lay's strength are enough to join our 8 major families in the territory of chaos. Oh, that's wrong. From today on, it should be the 9 major families. They have the obligations and responsibilities to maintain and manage the territory of chaos. If anyone dares to be rude to Master Jace and Brother Lay, he is provoking our 9 major families. Not to mention that Brother Lay will not spare the other party. Even I, Herbert, will never tolerate others doing this. I don't know what you think. How about it? Yes, it is really a blessing for our territory of chaos to have figures like Master Jace and Senior Lay in our territory of chaos. I, Reagan, of the Baihara family, agree with both hands. Reagan of the Baihara family was the first to express his opinion. Master Jace, Senior Lay, please take good care of me in the future. Nicholas, the patriarch of the Cage family, was smiling. I, the Coolidge family, also agree. Calvin, the patriarch of the Coolidge family, also spoke out. Since he can no longer stop the other party's rise, just try your best to build a good relationship with each other. The patriarchs of these 8 major families are not idiots. They naturally understand the meaning of Jason, the elixir master, and Renaud, the intermediate imperial spiritual master. They all come to show their goodwill, even the Curie family. The great elder, a black-haired old man wearing an earth-yellow spiritual master's uniform with gold trim, also stepped forward to congratulate him with a smile on his face, while Pierre, the patriarch of the Curie family, had a calm look in his eyes, not knowing what he was thinking about. On top of that, if Jason, the elixir master, was not too attractive, generally speaking, if a low-level imperial spiritual master appeared in the territory of chaos, these 8 major families would not only not destroy each other, but would draw them into this, come to the big group. The territory of chaos is a special area, and it is best for multiple families to secretly manage it together. If these top families often fight with each other like the cities in those places, then the entire territory of chaos will become all the families present have taken root in the territory of chaos in order to obtain materials from the cloud swamp to make money. A territory of chaos that is completely chaotic is far less valuable than a territory of chaos that is chaotic on the surface, but orderly in the dark. As for the Perret family, the 3 Daimler people had bitter expressions on their faces. Although they were full of resentment towards Jason and Renaud, they had no choice but to break their teeth and swallow hard into their stomachs. Several of them, "We'd better go down and talk," Elder Herbert of the Bella family said. Everyone nodded and walked towards the courtyard of the Cons family's mansion. As for the 3 Daimlers of the Perret family, they naturally had no shame to stay here, and suddenly flew towards the direction of his family's mansion. "Elder Daimler, don't forget those materials." From below, Renaud's loud voice came from below. The 3 Daimler people flying rapidly in the sky suddenly staggered. He almost fell from the sky and flew away in embarrassment. In fact, if Herbert and others had not appeared, Renaud was really prepared to kill the 3 Daimlers if there was a chance, but Herbert and others, as soon as they appeared, Renaud gave up his thoughts. The 7 major families appeared at this time, obviously to protect the Perret family. Although these 8 major families were competing with each other, Jason and Renaud had just appeared after all. Outsiders, even when Daimler and others had just shouted over the Cons family, they had already sensed that the reason for not showing up at the beginning was to let the Perret family take a good look at Renaud's strength. If the strength of Renaud and Jason were low, these people would appear in time after being captured by the Perret family, and they would be able to take a share of the pie. However, Renaud's strength was far beyond their expectations, and they had to face it. After this group of people disappeared, the residents of the City of Chaos who were watching the theater near the Cons family mansion dispersed one after another. Today's battle made the reputation of the Perret family once again rise in the territory of chaos. Fell down, and everyone also understood at the same time that from now on, there will be one more top master in the territory of chaos. Seeing Jason and Renaud come down safe and sound, both Tyson and Gandalf he hurriedly came forward, with unspeakable joy on his face. Everything about the 2 of them was firmly bound to Jason and Renaud. If possible, the 2 of them could do it for Jason and Renaud. Anything, after all, if Renaud had been defeated and captured before, the 2 of them would have faced only one ending, and that was death. After Herbert and others fell into the courtyard of the Cons family, under the leadership of Tyson and others, they all arriving at the hall of the mansion, the King's family can only be regarded as a medium-sized family in the territory of chaos, so the mansion purchased in the City of Chaos is also quite small. With this large group of people coming in, the whole hall suddenly seemed a little crowded. "The mansion is simple, please don't mind me," Renaud said with a smile. "Brother Lay, you're welcome, Senior." Everyone responded with a smile. They were also very particular about where they sat. Jason and Renaud were naturally sitting in the main seats. Above, Tyson and Gandalf fell apart. In the guest seats, sitting at the front were Patriarch Clara and Elder Herbert of the Bella family, as well as Patriarch Pierre and Robert of the Curie family. Elder Nader following in that order were the patriarchs of the 5 major families, including the Reagan Patriarch of the Bihara family, the Calvin Patriarch of the Coolidge family, and soon the maids from the Concy family mansion brought tea. These maids obviously listened. Despite the reputation of Herbert and others, they all looked a little excited. Fortunately, these maids had also undergone strict training and did not do anything embarrassing. After everyone had a simple greeting, Elder Herbert smiled. He spoke out, "Master Jace, Brother Lay, since your strength has been recognized by us, some representatives of our 8 major families will discuss with you the matter of taking charge of this territory of chaos, and as the leader of the territory of chaos, the top forces, the 2 families, also have the qualifications to open a large-scale area in the trading center." Jason and Renaud looked at each other and nodded, although the 2 of them came to the chaos territory just to find the cloud mist spirit fruit and restore Renaud's arm. "We'll definitely leave in a few days, but since the other party said so, it would be a good idea to let the Kang's family continue to operate in this chaotic territory and obtain a large amount of rare materials every year. By the way, Master Jace, here we are. If your Kang's family has any elixirs for sale, you must inform our Bella family. I believe that the price offered by our Bella family will not disappoint you too," Patriarch Clara said with a smile like a flower. Jason said, "Haha, Master Jace, if there is any magic potion, please take good care of our Bayuan family." The Reagan clan leader of the Bayuan family smiled and said, "We, the Cage family, also admire Master Jace very much." Nicholas, the clan leader, the patriarchs of various families who were not willing to lag behind were all very polite and maintained a relationship with Jason, as if they were all old friends for many years. "By the way, patriarchs." At this moment, Renaud suddenly spoke, and everyone was immediately involved. People's eyes were attracted to it. "I heard that there is a death maze deep in the cloud swamp. The clan leaders gathered in this chaotic city for this death maze. I wonder when your families are planning to set off." Herbert and others, they were all stunned, and there was a sudden silence in the hall, and the atmosphere seemed extremely strange. Haha, Herbert suddenly laughed, and his eyes exchanged with Ronald, the elder of the Curie family, who was standing next to him, and the latter smiled slightly. Nodding, "To be continued. I didn't expect that Brother Lay also knew about this death maze." "Yes, our 8 major families gathered in the City of Chaos to explore this death maze. In 5 days, our 8 major families will gather outside the Cloud Swamp. Let's enter the Cloud Swamp together and explore this maze of death. If Brother Lay is interested, he can also come then." Herbert smiled broadly. "Actually, even if Brother Lay doesn't mention it, we still have to discuss this matter with Jace." Master and Brother Lay said it. Looking at Herbert's smiling face, Jason and Renaud sneered secretly in their hearts. If Renaud hadn't mentioned it, it would be strange for Herbert to mention it. In fact, if Jason's side only had an entrance map to the death maze, but no one knew where the death maze was in the Cloud Swamp, I'm afraid Jason and Renaud would have entered the death maze alone to search for it. I won't get together with people from these 8 major families. Next, after Herbert and others chatted here for a while, they also said goodbye to Jason and Renaud, and left the mansion together. Not long after everyone left, the Perret family brought over some materials. There were not many of them. In the previous preparation competition, the Perret family lost 50% of the materials to the Jason family, and these materials, the materials are only less than half of the remaining 5 layers. However, such a submissive move by the Perret family caused Jason and the others to slap the Perret family hard in the face in front of the people of Chaos City. When Jason put these materials away, Renaud patted Gandalf on the shoulder. "Don't worry, if I have the chance, I will kill Manfred for you." As for the Perret family, a murderous intent suddenly rose in Renaud's eyes, and then he quickly restrained himself and disappeared. Before Jason could finish processing all the materials, people from the 8 major families came over to discuss taking charge of the City of Chaos. Such a matter was naturally arranged by Jason for Tyson. He and his father would always leave here, and as the Kongsi family was a local force in the territory of Chaos, they should naturally go to negotiate, and Jason also intended to let them. The Kongsi family has developed in this chaotic territory. This is an endless supply of materials. It will be much more convenient for me when I want to obtain some materials in the future. The only thing that gives Jason a headache is that if he and his father leave the territory of Chaos, the Kang's family's own strength will not be able to gain a foothold in this territory of Chaos. This makes Jason quite troubled, but it hasn't reached this point yet, so Jason doesn't bother to worry. After receiving Jason's order, Tyson was completely stunned at first, but when Jason got the definite answer, Tyson was extremely happy. His Kongsi family actually controls the entire territory of Chaos together with the Curie family and other 8 major families, becoming one of the 9 major forces in the entire territory of Chaos. Tyson couldn't even dream of such a thing before, but now, it has really happened. All of this is only because of the credit of Master Jace and Master Lei, which makes Tyson feel happy. I was so excited that I was incoherent. These 9 major families are not just small names. As the top families in the territory of Chaos, they all have the right to control the territory of Chaos. Almost 2/3 of the forces in the entire territory of Chaos are being controlled by these 8 major families. The annual profits are astonishingly powerful. The Perret family can easily produce 50 million spiritual coins. This kind of strength could only be surpassed by the Kang's family in the past, but now, but they have to stand on the same level as the other party. On the way to discuss with the representatives of the 8 major families, Tyson secretly vowed in his heart that he must manage everything in the territory of Chaos well for his 2 masters, so that he can live up to their expectations of him. In the following days, the entire Kongsi family mansion became completely busy, whether it was the elixirs needed by the people to suppress Jason's victory, or the power negotiations between the 8 major families and the Kongsi family. It made the entire Kongsi family mansion extremely noisy. The people of Chaos City also received news the next day. From now on, the territory of Chaos will change from 8 major families to 9 major families, and the new families include Master Jace and Master Lei. The Khan's family. When the news came back to Santa Fe City from the City of Chaos, the elder Diaz and the second young master of the Kang's family who stayed in Santa Fe City were so excited that they shed tears, and the entire Santa Fe City suddenly caught in a commotion. However, some people are happy and some are worried. While the Kang's family is celebrating, the cities and forces located near Santa Fe City are all on tenterhooks, fearing that the Kang's family will expand their influence into their territory. A family with a master of elixirs and a 7th-level intermediate imperial spiritual master is far beyond what small forces like them can match and contend with. Time passed quickly like running water, and 5 days passed by in a flash. During these 5 days, Jason was busy preparing elixirs according to the lists of all the winning spiritual masters. In fact, except for the 30 bottles of heavenly elixirs required by the Bella family and these relatively special elixirs, the elixirs that the other victorious people exchanged were not of very high levels, and most of them could make Gondolf prepares it. However, Jason did not do this. He prepared every bottle of elixir himself. Gandalf only helped with Jason's consent, and Jason did not use it when preparing the elixir. The method of preparing the technical spirit potion is like that of a normal elixir master, who completely uses spiritual consciousness and spiritual power to prepare it. In terms of the preparation of spiritual consciousness and spiritual power, Jason's theoretical knowledge and understanding are far deeper than Gandalf's, but in some aspects, he is no better than Gandalf, a 5th-level low-level elixir master. A master who has been preparing spiritual potions for decades is powerful. But in these 5 days, it was the preparation of these lowest level and simplest elixirs that made Gandalf feel deeply shocked by Jason, even more than when Jason prepared the Imperial level regeneration potion. The feelings brought by Gandalf are much deeper. In the process of preparing every bottle of spiritual potion, even if it is just the most common first-level spiritual potion, Jason is meticulous and extremely rigorous. He strives to achieve a perfect 100% degree of medicinal properties of the spiritual potion. There is no rush. Once the preparation is successful, that's it. For Jason, any bottle of elixir, no matter whether the level is high or low, whether the effect is strong or weak, is like his child. He needs to devote himself to the preparation of each bottle of elixir. I fell into my deep emotions, as if those elixirs were not just bottles of elixirs, but new lives one by one. A real elixir master prepares elixirs not only for the success of the preparation, but more importantly for enjoying the preparation process. The birth of any bottle of elixirs is like the birth of a life. People's status may be high or low. But there is no distinction between high and low in life itself, and the same is true for elixirs. Only those elixir masters who truly understand this can eventually grow into a master elixir master. Just like Archimedes, even when preparing the simplest powerful potion, he strives to do his best, constantly improve, and use up all his energy. It was his attitude, his understanding, and his 6 years of persistence and accumulation that finally allowed him to reach the realm of the 9th-level elixir master. And those elixir masters who laughed at him for being able to prepare inferior spiritual potions, no matter how high their level was, were actually inferior. While Jason was frantically preparing the spiritual potion, Renaud was practicing crazily. After the regeneration potion reborn his body, his training speed was greatly improved. Whether it was comprehending the spiritual elements between heaven and earth, or converting spiritual elements into spiritual power and absorbing it into his body, Renaud's speed has been greatly improved, especially when he was running the spiritual power in his body. He felt like a fish in water. In the past, when the body was running spiritual power or performing some spiritual skills, Renaud often needed to control the amount and speed of spiritual power to prevent the spiritual power in the body from running too large and causing serious damage to the meridians. But now this body, no matter how crazily he runs the spiritual power in his body, his spiritual power is at the 7th level and cannot cause any damage to his meridians. Whether it is the strength, width or flexibility of the meridians, they are far beyond Renaud's imagination. This result made Renaud feel dumbfounded. What Renaud didn't know was that the 7th-level elixir could bring about visions of heaven and earth, which already had the feeling of overcoming the heaven and earth. Its effect was naturally not comparable to that of ordinary elixirs. On the morning of the 5th day, Jason and Renaud got up early, said goodbye to Gandalf and Tyson, and walked towards the south gate of the City of Chaos. Although Gandalf and Tyson also wanted to go to the Death Maze, it was just because their strength was too weak. Even with the map, there were still many dangers in the Death Maze, including the clouds and mist heading to the Death Maze. The road to the swamp was not smooth sailing. With the strength of the two of them, not only could they not be of any help, they could only distract Renaud, and they could only stay in the City of Chaos. Soon, Jason and Renaud arrived at the south gate. At this moment, on the avenue outside the south gate of the City of Chaos, people from the 8 major families of the territory of Chaos have arrived. The 2 elders of the Perret family, Daimler and Nixon, did not come with them. From the Curie family came 2 elders, Ronald and Patriarch Pierre, and from the Bella family came 2 elders, Herbert and Patriarch Clara. As for the other 5 major families, those who came were all clan leaders. There were 11 people in total, but none of them was below the level of the Imperial Spirit Master. "Brother Lay, you didn't come until now?" As soon as Herbert saw Renaud appear, he immediately greeted him with a smile. However, when he saw Jason next to Renaud, he was stunned. "Master Jason, you cloud swamp spirit beasts are rampant and full of dangers. Their destination, the Death Labyrinth, is even more like purgatory. Over the past thousands of years, countless strong men have fallen in the territory of Chaos. Among them, it was extremely dangerous, so when they saw Jason appearing with Renaud, they all had surprised looks on their faces. "Why, is Great Elder Herbert surprised to see me?" Jason said with a faint smile. Herbert's face was solemn. Master Jace, this death maze is very dangerous. If possible, I advise you not to go. Herbert kindly reminded you. Thank you, Elder Herbert, for your concern. However, I am also very curious about this death maze. Elder Herbert, please rest assured that if you encounter danger, I will have my own means to save my life. Jason looked at Nixon with a smile and said, although I'm weak, I won't hold you back much. A few days ago, Nixon captured Jason in the sky above the Kant's residence, and everyone present knew that Jason had set him up. A flash of evil energy suddenly flashed across Nixon's face on the side, and his face turned slightly red. Herbert sighed and said, since Master Jace insists on going, let's not talk nonsense. This place is still hundreds of miles away from the edge of the cloud swamp. Let's set off now. As he spoke, he took the lead and flew up, and Clara, Daimler, and others also flew up immediately. Fortunately, Jason himself had flying skills. Otherwise, he really wouldn't know how to keep up with everyone. I'm afraid he would have to be carried away by his father. What puzzles Jason is that the traitor Manfred, who betrayed the Desert Fox Adventure Group and took refuge with the Perret family, is not here. Generally speaking, even if people like the Perret family have the same map as Jason, they will take Manfred with them to the Maze of Death. After all, the other party has entered the palace before, and the map is far away after all. It's not as convenient as having a real person lead the way. Everyone flew quickly in the sky without any pause along the way. The distance was hundreds of miles. With everyone's fast flight, a few hours later, a dense jungle in the distance appeared in everyone's sight. In the Stern Continent, swamps in the general sense are wetlands, where shrubs and other plants grow. However, this cloud swamp is a rare forested swamp, like an extremely majestic and surging swamp. Ancient rainforest. Looking from afar, the entire field of vision to the end of the horizon is covered by these towering trees. The youngest of these big trees are probably hundreds of years old, while the older trees further in, and the deepest ones, have grown for thousands to tens of thousands of years, and some even existed in ancient times. The ancient trees cover the sky and the sun. Moreover, in this cloud swamp, due to various types of moisture, the rain forest is filled with fog all year round. These strange fogs not only affect people's sight, but also bring great inconvenience to the observation of the spiritual consciousness of the spiritual master, therefore extremely dangerous. Looking from the sky, there are small towns dotted with stars on the edge of this cloud swamp. Jason, who grew up in an adventure town like Kodo Town, naturally understands that Kodo Town is an adventure town specially set up outside the Spirit Beast mountain range. These towns are adventurer towns specially set up by the territory of chaos on the outskirts of the cloud swamp. Everyone, come with me. Elder Daimler said coldly in the sky, flying towards the outskirts of a small town. Outside that small town, a group of spiritual masters with respectful expressions were standing. After seeing Daimler and others appearing, their expressions suddenly became extremely respectful. In the sky, only Daimler and Nixon settled down. Great Elder, the leader, was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He had a mustache and his eyes moved from time to time. He looked extremely shrewd. After seeing Daimler, he hurriedly stepped forward and spoke respectfully. Daimler waved his hand. No need to talk nonsense, don't waste time. Nixon, you take Manfred, and let's go. Nixon immediately grabbed the middle-aged man, and they flew into the sky with Daimler again. In the sky, Jason's eyes flashed, and he looked at each other silently with his father beside him. They had been wondering why Manfred was not there before, but it turned out that he had been waiting outside the cloud swamp for a long time. Now that everyone is here, don't waste time. Let's go directly into the cloud swamp and go to the death maze, and then hunt for treasures. In the sky, Daimler looked around at everyone and said coldly, "No rush, no rush." Herbert smiled and said, "Let me make it clear before setting off. This is the first thing. Although it is only 1,000 miles to enter the cloud swamp, if you encounter any spiritual beast, we will definitely don't run away. That's natural. Daimler responded first, and the others nodded. Herbert continued, the second thing is about the treasure in the maze of death. However, among all the people present, except for Manfred, none of them have ever entered the palace. The news about the treasure is true. The fake may not be real yet, the distribution of this treasure should wait until everyone enters the palace. But Herbert's face turned cold. If there is any danger along the way, and some people are unable to do their work, don't it's my fault, Herbert, for being ruthless. Others did not object. It is only natural to have great strength, exert great efforts, and obtain great benefits. Moreover, before obtaining the treasure, everyone present is a grasshopper tied to a rope. Naturally, they must work together. Very good, then let's set off. Herbert was very satisfied with everyone's reaction, and then took the lead and flew into the cloud swamp, and everyone followed one by one. Herbert did not specifically explain to Renaud the matter of the palace treasure. Ordinary people did not know about this matter. However, what happened 8 years ago caused an uproar in the city of Chaos and was spread among the big families in the territory of Chaos. Since Jason and Reno took the initiative to bring up the death maze before, they should know the news. In fact, the Chaos territory has been exploring this death maze for thousands of years, and has never succeeded in the past. Therefore, although the 8 major families will send people to explore every 8 years, the people sent are only 5th and 6th level people. The children of the family, the pillars of the family like Herbert, did not come every time in the past. After all, if one of them dies in the death maze, without the 7th level Imperial Spirit Master to take charge, that person's family will probably be excluded from the core forces of the Chaos territory. Such a price is really unaffordable. However, this time, the patriarchs of these families all gathered at once. In the sky, this group of 14 people quickly flew into the cloud swamp and flew directly towards the depths of the cloud swamp. Along the way, everyone was silent and hurried on. The pressure of the 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master radiated overwhelmingly, looking extremely arrogant. As they passed by, the low-level spirit beasts felt this powerful force, and they were all so frightened that they fell to the ground, trembling all over, and not daring to make the slightest move. Huh? Just as everyone was hurrying on their way, Renaud's brows furrowed in the sky. In the rainforest ahead, a team of about 10 adventurers was being attacked by a 5th-level spiritual beast, the Dragon Fawn Fierce Tiger. The strongest among the adventurer team was a 5th-level low-level sect spiritual master, and the rest were all he was a 4th or 3rd-level spiritual master. Under the attack of this dragon-toothed tiger, many people were seriously injured and their lives were in danger. Feeling the super pressure that passed quickly in the sky, the entire adventurer team looked horrified, while the dragon-toothed tiger let out a mournful cry and fell to the ground. Herbert and others passed by quickly, but they didn't even look back, nor did they take a second look at the dying adventurer team below. Jason turned to look at his father. Whoosh! A golden sword light suddenly shot out from Renaud's right hand. The 5th-level dragon-toothed tiger had long been frightened by the pressure of more than a dozen 7th-level Imperial spiritual masters and was unable to move. He was directly hit by Renaud. A flash of sword light split them in half, leaving only a group of adventurers with faces filled with horror and the aftermath of the disaster. Brother Lay, you are too soft-hearted. Herbert turned to look at Renaud and smiled. Humph, a group of little adventurers dared to go deep into the cloud swamp. They deserved to die under the claws of dragons and tigers. Daimler snorted coldly. Renaud smiled and remained silent. As everyone went deeper, the surrounding clouds and mist also became weird. It was no longer a simple moisture mist, but a poisonous mist with a faint taste and color. However, most of the people present were 7th-level Imperial Spiritual Masters, and Manfred was also a 6th-level low-level Spiritual Master. As for Jason, he was naturally not afraid of the poisonous mist, so he wasn't too worried. However, everyone's flying speed gradually slowed down, and the previous desperate arrogance gradually subsided. Now everyone has penetrated hundreds of miles into the cloud swamp, which is considered extremely deep in the cloud swamp. From time to time, some 6th-level spiritual beasts appear here, and everyone has begun to be careful. The cloud swamp has a vicious reputation and is known as one of the 7 most dangerous places in the mainland. No one wants to die at the hands of a spiritual beast before seeing the shrine. Just after everyone went hundreds of miles deeper, a large pink fog suddenly appeared in front of them. These fogs were like dreamy bubbles, sometimes emerging and sometimes shattering, which was extremely strange. Everyone. Herbert looked at everyone with a serious face and said, "In front of us is the most dangerous depth area of the cloud swamp. It is not far from the death maze and will be there soon. Be careful, everyone, this pink mist is highly poisonous, don't inhale too much, but apart from that, the most terrifying thing is that there are powerful spiritual beasts lurking in this depth zone. Before entering, I must explain one thing here. When encountering spiritual beasts, they will run away one by one." Roar, roar, roar. Just as Herbert finished speaking, suddenly, a large number of roars of spiritual beasts suddenly sounded throughout the dense forest. Everyone's expressions suddenly changed, and they hurriedly looked towards the place where the sound came from, only to see dozens of huge black shadows appearing in the sky, speeding towards everyone. No, it's a group of 6th-order spiritual beasts, eagle-eyed griffins. The faces of Herbert and others suddenly changed color. Eagle-eyed griffin, dozens of eagle-eyed griffins. Eagle-eyed griffins are 6th-level spiritual beasts. They are extremely ferocious and powerful. They are almost the last thing spiritual masters want to encounter. The 6th-level spirit beasts are here because they live in groups. In Stern Continent, among spiritual beasts and spiritual masters of the same level, the strength of the spiritual beasts is generally higher than that of the spiritual masters, and this eagle-eyed griffin is the most powerful species among the 6th-level spiritual beasts. A single eagle-eyed griffin is not much weaker than a 7th-level low-level imperial spiritual master. Even a 7th-level senior imperial spiritual master would feel extremely headache and troublesome when encountering a group of eagle-eyed griffins. Everyone, be careful. These eagle-eyed griffins are flying from the poisonous fog area. Everyone landed on the ground and formed a circle. Master Jace, Manfred, you two are in the middle. Herbert's face with dignity, he shouted loudly. Elder Ronald of the Curie family and Elder Daimler of the Perret family also had extremely solemn faces, and they all landed on the ground. When he got closer, Jason discovered that these eagle-eyed griffins had the body of a lion, the wings of a goshawk, and sharp claws, and their eyes were all extremely blood-red, and a violent aura naturally exuded. These eagle-eyed griffins live in the poisonous fog area of the cloud swamp. They are affected by the poisonous fog all year round, and their originally ferocious characters have become extremely bloodthirsty. Roar, the eagle-eyed griffins let out a terrifying roar like a lion's roar. Their blood-red eyes stared at everyone. It was obvious that they had targeted everyone. The speed of the eagle-eyed griffins suddenly increased. Several times, he rushed directly towards the crowd. Daimler, Ronald, Brother Lay, let's go. Herbert said in a low voice. As soon as Herbert's voice rang in everyone's ears, Herbert, Daimler, Ronald and Renault rushed towards the group of eagle-eyed griffins. As for the others, of course they would not show off and formed a circle. Lock up. Whoosh whoosh roar. Herbert held a spiritual staff in his hand, and the light spiritual power on his body was surging. Thick beams of light were continuously shot out from the light spiritual crystal at the top of the spiritual staff. After the light hit the eagle-eyed griffins suddenly roared miserably, and their flesh and blood began to rot. In Ronald's hand, he was holding a pitch-black sword. He slashed it down, and earth-yellow light quickly rippled out. Wherever it went, the 2 eagle-eyed griffins in the center suddenly turned into a rain of blood, and the ones next to it suddenly turned into rain of blood. Several eagle-eyed griffins were swaying and were greatly disturbed. After Daimler's spiritual python whip was destroyed by Renault, it was now replaced with a spiritual staff. As he waved his hand, countless green energy lingered, and a large number of green vines entangled towards the eagle-eyed griffins, greatly hindering those eagle-eyed griffins. The advance of the griffin. As for Renaud, he seemed relatively low-key, with minimal fluctuations in spiritual power and calm eyes. However, every time he swung the long sword in his hand, a golden sword light flew out so fast that it was impossible to blink. The head of the eagle-eyed griffin was chopped off instantly, and with a wave of his hand, 3 eagle-eyed griffins died under his sword. Within a breath of charging, the whole sky was suddenly filled with the smell of a lot of blood. In just one encounter, nearly 10 eagle-eyed griffins died in the hands of the 4 Renauds, and there were even several eagle-eyed griffins. The griffin was injured. It's just that the number of these eagle-eyed griffins is too much. There are 50 or 60 of them, and each one has blood-red eyes, and they are fighting forward desperately. Suddenly, 20 or 30 eagle-eyed griffins broke through the defense of the 4 people and rushed into the crowd below. Kill, 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 below, Reagan and others also roared with anger. Various sword lights, and spiritual lights lit up in the crowd, rushing towards the dozens of eagle-eyed griffins. At the same time, countless wind blades suddenly appeared above everyone's heads. The eagle-eyed griffin is a wind spirit beast, and its best attack is the single-target wind blade attack. No, everyone spread out, someone in the crowd shouted. There are 8 7th-level low-level Imperial spiritual masters below, as well as Jason and Manfred. Although they are gathered together for defense, when they are attacked by a large number of wind blades, they are too dense and cannot resist them all. Countless blood flowers bloomed in the air, and the air was filled with blood mist, including the blood of eagle-eyed griffins and the blood of humans. After a contact, everyone came into contact with the eagle-eyed griffins and fought with each other. Jason and Manfred, who were surrounded in the middle, were naturally attacked. The eagle-eyed griffins were not afraid of life and death. With blood-red eyes, he was killing everyone, but his violent killing intent was so crazy. Crazy, violent, and bloodthirsty kill. Huge roars came from the crowd, and the Imperial spirit masters such as Nixon and Reagan also went crazy after seeing the blood. They are different from the 4 Renauds. They are just 7th-level low-level Imperial spiritual masters. As one of the strongest 6th-level spiritual beasts, the eagle-eyed griffin can also hurt them with attacks. If several eagle-eyed griffins attack at the same time, launching an attack can even make them fall. Jason flew aside as soon as the crowd dispersed. Fortunately, with so many eagle-eyed griffins, he was only stared at by one eagle-eyed griffin. The eagle-eyed griffin is only a 6th-level spiritual beast. It can fly because of its wings. It is not like the 7th-level spiritual beast that can communicate with the aura of heaven and earth. Therefore, its flying speed is only comparable to Jason's lightning wings, even slightly worse than Jason. Whoosh, the wind blades passed by Jason's body, but were sensed early by Jason's keen spiritual sense and dodged away. Buzz, during the flight, Jason suddenly turned around, and a strange fluctuation flashed across his eyes. The body of the flying eagle-eyed griffin suddenly stiffened. Boom! The next moment, a huge black heavy sword had hit the eagle-eyed griffin's head heavily, and the powerful metal power quickly penetrated into the eagle-eyed griffin's head. Fatal blow. The eagle-eyed griffin screamed, a large amount of blood spurted out from its mouth, and its body staggered towards the ground. Buzz, the soul shock radiated out again. Immediately afterwards, Jason struck the eagle-eyed griffin on the head with another sword. This time, the hard head finally cracked open and blood spurted out. However, the eagle-eyed griffin was not dead yet. Throbbing in pain on the ground. A golden sword light suddenly swept from a distance, completely understanding the life of the eagle-eyed griffin. The levels among spirit beasts are extremely strict. Among the levels of spirit beasts, the 9-headed fear phantom demon already belongs to the holy level spirit beast of the spiritual system. Therefore, the soul shock is extremely effective against the eagle-eyed griffin. In addition, the 6th level, the intelligence of the spirit beast is not high, so Jason can easily injure or even kill it. If Jason's opponent is replaced by a 6th level spiritual master, it may not be that easy. Moreover, if two eagle-eyed griffins are chasing Jason at the same time, Jason will have no choice but to run for his life. Jason raised his head and saw his father not far away killing an eagle-eyed griffin with a sword. At the same time, his eyes were looking towards him. Jason knew that his father had been watching him throughout the entire process. If there is any danger, we will definitely come in time. After nearly 10 minutes of fighting, the whole scene was coming to an end. After everyone's hard work, nearly 40 of the 50 or 60 eagle-eyed griffins were dead, leaving only a dozen or so eagle-eyed griffins. The mournful scream disappeared into the clouds at the end of the line of sight. The entire ground was in a mess, with blood flowing everywhere. The most miserable person was Manfred, a 6th level low-level spiritual master. He just ran away with his head in his hands, but he still inevitably left several scars on his body. If it weren't for Nixon was always guarding him, and he might have died in the previous battle. In addition to Manfred, several others were more or less injured. Even the head of the Coolidge family, Calvin, had a huge gash in his abdomen, with blood flowing freely. It was the result of 3 eagle-eyed lions. The eagles attacked at the same time. It's strange. Now that September has entered, the poisonous fog deep in the cloud swamp has dispersed a lot, and it has not yet completely entered the depths of the poisonous fog area. There would not have been so many eagle-eyed griffins in the past. Herbert, he spoke with a solemn expression on his face. Daimler and others also nodded. Several of their major families would send people into the death maze to explore every 8 years. Although they would be attacked by spiritual beasts every time, they encountered a large number of 6th-order spiritual beasts like this eagle at the edge of the deepest poisonous fog area. I'd griffin, but it has never happened. In the past, without 7th-level imperial spiritual masters like them, I am afraid that the entire team sent by their family would have been destroyed long ago if they encountered this eagle-eyed griffin. While everyone was healing their wounds and full of doubts, Jason was happily collecting the spiritual cores of these eagle-eyed griffins. The 6th-level spiritual cores would be worth a lot of money if they were taken to the mainland. Although Jason has a lot of money now, no one would mind having too much money. Everyone. After a moment, Herbert stood up. Don't stay here for a long time, I always feel something is wrong. Herbert's eyes were cold. Daimler, the 2 of us in the front, Brother Lay, you and Ronald are in the back, and the others are in the center. If any spiritual beast appears in the front, Daimler and I will take action. If it is in the back, Brother Lay and Ronald will take action, and the others will take action. It's best not to show off. If we are no match, just run away. Brother Lay, Daimler, Ronald, do you have any opinions? Along the way, Herbert was like the leader of the crowd. I have no objection. Daimler said coldly. It's okay with me, Ronald said. Renault simply shook his head. That's good, let's set off quickly and reach the death maze as soon as possible. According to experience, after reaching the outer edge of the death maze, there will never be any spiritual beasts. Herbert said seriously. Led by Herbert and Daimler, Renault and Ronald were in the rear, and the others were in the center. Just like that, this group of people began to enter the pink poisonous fog area and flew towards the death maze. In the deepest part of the cloud swamp, an unknown number of miles away, in an unknown cave, a pair of golden pupils suddenly appeared from the darkness in the center of the originally dark cave. Dozens of 6th-level little flies were repelled so quickly a sonorous, metallic voice sounded in the cave. Well, there are more than 10 7th-level little guys this time. It seems that the master, since the treasure was discovered last time, it has finally attracted the attention of some people. I wonder if among this group of people, there will be the destined person that the master said? Well, according to the master's instructions, according to their strength, let's give them some obstacles along the way. The giant golden eyes in the cave closed quietly, and fell into darkness again. The weather in September is usually sunny and hot. However, in this cloud swamp, it is filled with moisture all year round. Under the towering trees that block the sky, you can't feel the slightest sunshine, only a kind of aura. The suffocating heat spreads in the rainforest. In the area where the faint red mist was drifting, dozens of figures were advancing rapidly. It was Jason and others. Everyone was like sharp arrows, moving forward quickly, but their momentum was completely restrained, and they appeared to be extremely careful, trying not to produce the slightest fluctuation in spiritual power, which would attract the attention of the powerful spiritual beasts lurking in the poisonous fog area. The two people at the front, Herbert and Daimler, had serious faces, their spiritual consciousness spread out, and their spirits were highly concentrated. They were the top of the crowd, breaking through clouds and fog, but these two people also spread their spiritual consciousness at the same time, and they couldn't help it. Don't dare to be careless in the slightest. At this moment, everyone has entered the red mist area for hundreds of miles, and is only about 100 miles away from the death maze. The red poisonous mist is getting thicker and thicker, but for Emperor Spirit Masters like Herbert, he said that this concentration of poisonous mist was not enough to have much impact on them. Just when everyone was cautious, dozens of miles away, a black phantom was rushing towards everyone at a very fast speed. It was much faster than the previous eagle-eyed griffin. In just a moment, the black phantom was rushing towards everyone. The shadow came not far from everyone. Herbert's eyes saw a phantom in the distance, and his expression changed drastically. Daimler and others also changed their expressions. They had just sensed the aura of the spirit beast, and before they even had time to sense the opponent's strength, the spirit beast had already appeared within eye range. Careful, Herbert only had time to remind him, and then his whole body turned into a white light and shot towards the phantom, while Daimler followed closely. Herbert and Daimler have just discovered the phantom speed. Even if Herbert is compared with it, there is some gap. Everyone can't escape and can only fight. With Herbert and Daimler at the 7th level, they can't escape. With the strength of the intermediate Imperial Spiritual Master, the two of them tried to defeat this phantom. Reagan and more than a dozen people who followed closely behind did not take action, they were not sure. Ronald and Renault at the rear were guarding the rear. There was an explosion and roar, and at the same time, the surrounding red poisonous mist was shaken by the energy and flew in all directions. The red mist was like a wave, coming towards the surrounding areas with overwhelming force. In an instant, the black phantom separated from Herbert and Daimler. At this moment, everyone finally saw the true face of the black phantom. This is a 2-meter-tall spiritual beast that looks like a mantis. It has 6 transparent wings on its back. The carapace on its body is dark and shiny. Its 2 arms are like 2 sharp serrated knives, reflecting the cold light. Its whole body is dark, like a metal building. Into general. A pair of slightly reddish golden eyes looked at everyone present coldly and ferociously. 7th level spiritual beast iron-backed sword mantis, Ronald said with a solemn expression on his face. Everyone was shocked. This iron-backed sword mantis is a 7th level gold-type spiritual beast. It is extremely hard and its attacks are extremely powerful. Especially its speed is as fast as lightning. If it were to be fought alone, only Renault and 4 other intermediate Emperor spiritual masters could do it. Fight it. Kill it, Herbert frowned coldly and said loudly. Dozens of vines as thick as arms suddenly appeared in the air, shooting towards the iron-backed sword mantis. It was Daimler who took action. Herbert waved his hand, and a large ray of white light fell from the sky. Wherever it went, the red mist was dispersed. The previously eagle-eyed griffins were purified into pus under these white lights. Water. The 2 swords in Taibei Dao Mantis's arms instantly turned into a phantom, lingering in gold, giving people a feeling of sword energy filling the sky. The surrounding space seemed to solidify at this moment. A golden ball formed around the mantis. Chi, as soon as the dozens of vines that were originally entangled with the iron-backed sword mantis entered the golden ball, they were instantly cut into dozens of pieces and fell down, and Herbert released the white mist also stopped here and could not fall down. Hey! After the iron-backed sword mantis blocked the attacks of the two men, it suddenly turned into a bright light and rushed directly towards Herbert, who was nearest to it. Huh! When the bright light was only a few meters away from Herbert, Herbert immediately turned into lightning and flew back. Herbert is a light spiritual master, and among this large group of powerful men, only Renaud can match his speed. But the handover of the device. Herbert was thrown away from the ground, and finally turned around in midair and retreated. His face suddenly turned pale, and a trace of blood oozed from the corners of his mouth. However, the light spiritual power in his body quickly circulated, and he recovered in an instant. Come over. Everyone present changed their color. But Renaud's eyes in the crowd suddenly lit up. That move before Renaud's mind recalled the previous defense of the iron-backed sword mantis. The sword energy was everywhere, and the golden spiritual power was emitted. Even the space seemed to be controlled. Any external attack would only enter that place. A certain area can be locked instantly and cannot cause harm to it. This iron-backed sword mantis instinctively brought a touch of metal mystery into its defense, which gave Renaud a lot of insights. Let's all take action together, Herbert hummed, an evil spirit condensing between his brows. The iron-backed sword mantis glanced cautiously at Jason and the others present, and then whoosh. The iron-backed sword mantis actually ran away, but after being hundreds of meters away from the crowd, he stopped again. His cold eyes were fixed on Jason and the others present, neither leaving nor approaching. This iron-backed sword mantis, Herbert cursed secretly. The seventh order Emperor-level spirit beasts are different from ordinary spirit beasts. They are high-level spirit beasts that already have extremely strong intelligence and are no lower than ordinary people. The 9th-level sacred beast can even speak human words, and the 10th-level sacred beast can even take the form of a human. Now the iron-backed sword mantis obviously saw that Jason and others were powerful and was hiding aside, but it was looking for weaknesses in Jason and others. As long as someone didn't pay attention, he might be attacked by it. Don't get entangled, let's go. This iron-backed sword mantis was too fast. Even if they caught up with it, no one was sure to kill it. If they stayed here, they would only encounter more dangers, so they had to ignore it and quickly sweeping towards the direction of the death maze. The iron-backed sword mantis didn't take it seriously and didn't take any action. He just stuck close to everyone's side and stared at everyone with his cold eyes, which made everyone have to be extremely careful and focus a considerable part of their attention on the iron-backed sword mantis. A group of people rushed forward one by one, fearful. After flying for dozens of miles, whoosh, whoosh, two more phantoms suddenly appeared beside everyone. Oh my God, there are two more iron-backed sword mantises. Everyone was shocked. The cold eyes of the three iron-backed sword mantises looked down, and everyone's hearts trembled. Three-headed emperor-level spiritual beasts. Jason felt a little anxious in his heart. He could still fight against the eagle-eyed griffin before, but if he faced the iron-backed sword mantis, with his strength, he would not be able to dodge the previous one. A lightning-fast knife. Not only Jason is anxious, but also several other clan leaders are anxious. If the three iron-backed sword mantises rush over at this time, they will definitely kill many people present. If they attack together, Herbert is like this, the intermediate-level Imperial Spiritual Master may also die in an instant. Everyone's hearts suddenly rose, they clenched the weapons in their hands, and were covered in cold sweat. The three iron-backed sword mantises looked at each other and seemed to be communicating with each other. Maybe it was because they were not sure of killing everyone and protecting themselves, so there was no fight that everyone was afraid of. They just dispersed and joined together again. They followed everyone beside and behind them, forming a triangle and tightly surrounding them. The three iron-backed mantises were waiting very patiently like three experienced hunters, waiting for the moment when their prey showed its flaws, and their prey was none other than Jason and the others. "Let's go quickly." Herbert and others' faces changed color, and they accelerated their flight speed. At this moment, everyone had only one thought in their minds, and that was to rush to the maze of death as quickly as possible. As long as one or two more iron-backed sword mantises appear, the opponent will have more power than the dozen or so Imperial Spirit Masters. By then, if 4 or 5 iron-backed sword mantises attack at the same time, no one in the entire team can be sure of survival. Come down. It's just that no matter how fast Herbert and others fly, they can only move forward based on the slowest speed in the team. The leader of the Coolidge family, Calvin, who has not yet recovered from his injury in the previous battle with the eagle-eyed griffin. These 3 iron-backed sword mantises are really too cunning. If the team desperately runs away, the scattered team will definitely be killed one by the opponent. After all, except for the gold-type Renault and the light-type Herbert, the speed of the rest of the team was lower than that of the iron-backed sword mantis. Jason took out a bottle of wind potion from the space ring and drank it fiercely. He originally tried his best, but still at a relatively slow speed, but he instantly overtook several low-level Imperial spiritual masters in the team who were not good at speed. Just when everyone was anxious and flying at high speed, the 3-headed iron-backed mantis that had been following everyone suddenly stopped. Its body trembled suddenly, and its cold eyes full of murderous intent flashed. There was a look of fear in their eyes, and then they looked at each other. Swish, swish, swish. The 3 iron-backed sword mantises all turned around and flew away. What's going on? Why did the iron-backed sword mantis leave? Someone trembled. Not only did there not be any joy or relaxation in his tone, but there was an inexplicable tense atmosphere circulating among everyone. The iron-backed sword mantis was frightened earlier. His eyes made everyone feel something was wrong. Just when everyone was trembling with fear, a low roar sounded, and a huge spiritual beast was seen in the distance, and a huge black object several meters high was shot from a distance like lightning. At the same time, an extremely huge spiritual pressure was like a huge mountain, pressing on everyone's hearts, making everyone's hearts beat like war drums. This is a mysterious spiritual beast that everyone present has never seen before. It has strong hoofs and claws, a pair of huge wings covered with scales, a powerful tail, a single horn that stabs into the sky, and those cold and ruthless dark golden eyes. It's an 8th order Emperor level spiritual beast, the golden horned giant beast. Among the crowd, someone trembled, with uncontrollable horror in his tone. Escape. Everyone looked at each other in horror, and instantly, like a swarm of frightened wasps, they fled towards the death maze as fast as possible, no longer caring about the formation of the team. Jason also followed the crowd, and all the spiritual energy in his body roared instantly, and he rushed forward crazily. Under the effect of the blast potion, he actually passed by several people at once, including Daimler and other intermediate Imperial spiritual masters. The speed is almost there. 8th level Emperor level spiritual beast, the golden horned giant beast. Jason felt his heartbeat speed up. The Emperor level spirit beast is an extremely powerful golden horned beast among the Emperor level spirit beasts. It is more powerful than the average 8th level high level Emperor spirit master. If you want to kill everyone, it will be effortless. Suddenly, the red poisonous mist dispersed in the distance, and a huge, city-like palace appeared in everyone's eyes. Look, look, the maze of death. Someone in the crowd yelled crazily, with great surprise in their shouts. This is the maze of death. Jason was ecstatic in his heart, flying wildly, and his heart was beating violently. Seeing the maze of death at this critical moment is like seeing a lighthouse on a lost ship on the sea. It seems that at the moment of dawn, the dark night sky finally sees the light of dawn, which is the light of hope. As long as you reach the maze of death, you can live, otherwise, die. It's coming soon. Everyone's eyes glowed, like hungry wolves after seeing food. Seeing the people fleeing as fast as locusts, the golden-horned beast looked at the people with its dark golden eyes, but there was a trace of amusement in the depths of its eyes, as if it was seeing many fun toys. Then a huge roar came, and the huge claws of the golden-horned beast suddenly swung out. The invisible spiritual energy fluctuations spread out and instantly enveloped everyone in it. Everyone felt as if a big mountain was pressing down on them, and the speed of the flyby suddenly slowed down a lot. The hearts of everyone who had originally seen the maze of death and were about to reach it felt as if they suddenly fell from the sky to the bottom of the valley. There were only 2 people in the crowd whose speed suddenly increased due to this wave of spiritual power, and that was Reno and Nicholas from the Cage family. This is a gold-based elemental barrier? Jason suddenly realized that this Emperor-level spiritual beast was able to cast elemental barriers, just like an 8th-level Emperor spiritual master. As a gold-type spiritual beast, this golden-horned giant beast releases elemental barriers that are naturally of the metal type. It has a very strong restrictive effect on ordinary spiritual masters, but for metal spiritual masters it is certain. Amplitude. Buzz buzz, 3 golden spirit rings suddenly appeared on Jason's head, and the second one trembled violently. Jason's speed, which had been weakened under the elemental barrier, surged again. It really works. Jason ignored the joy in his heart and flew towards the maze of death desperately. The golden ring silver python is a gold spirit beast, and its second spirit ring is also a gold spirit ring. Under the amplitude of the golden ring silver python's gold spirit ring, Jason's speed is actually faster than before. Renault, who originally wanted to turn back and pull Jason away, noticed that Jason's speed had soared, and immediately flew forward alongside Jason. Jason and others were flying in front, but the previously injured patriarch, Calvin, flew behind them under the pressure of the elemental barrier. A huge black shadow quickly approached him, and the huge hoof claws slammed down, and the strong spiritual power even crushed the air in an instant. Chief Calvin sensed the danger, with tremors and horror in his eyes, and the spiritual energy in his body surged out desperately. He just ran forward, not even noticing that the wound on his waist burst open again and blood flowed across it. However, despite Patriarch Calvin's best efforts, he still could not escape the fatal claw. Ah! The shrill scream instantly pierced the silence of the entire cloud swamp. However, the scream only sounded halfway before it stopped abruptly. During the mad escape, someone looked back and saw that the Calvin Patriarch was directly turned into a blood mist under the claws of the golden-horned beast. As a 7th-level low-level Imperial spiritual master, Patriarch Calvin died in one move under the sharp claw attack of the golden-horned giant beast, and everyone's hearts instantly went cold. What happens to Calvin now is their next ending. Boom! The golden-horned beast struck down with another claw. The other patriarch of the 5 major families, who was just in front of Calvin and lagging behind everyone, also screamed and turned into flesh. Fear, fear, everyone is trembling in their hearts. However, they could only grit their teeth and rush forward crazily, praying for God's arrangements. Close, close, everyone shouted in their hearts, and Herbert, who was flying at the front, showed a hint of joy on his face. He was less than a kilometer away from the boundary line of the death maze. 1,000 meters, for him, an intermediate emperor, spiritual master of the light system, could pass by in the blink of an eye. Just when Herbert was in ecstasy, the golden-horned beast suddenly stopped, and secret text suddenly lit up on the golden giant sword above his head, and then, boo-hoo-hoo, countless golden lights came from 12 bolts of lightning shot out from the golden sharp horn, flying towards the 12 people present. Among them, the first golden light instantly cut through countless distances, and suddenly came behind Herbert. Noah Bear let out a desperate roar, and his originally ecstatic heart suddenly felt as cold as falling into an ice cave. He turned around and waved the spiritual staff in his hand instantly, blocking the golden light, but there was a trace of despair in his eyes. How could he, a 7th-level intermediate imperial spiritual master, be able to block the attack of the 8th-level emperor-level spiritual beast, the golden-horned giant beast? So at the same time, almost everyone in the sky blocked the golden light in despair. Boom, 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 violent explosions suddenly sounded one after another over the cloud swamp. One of the golden lights hit Jason's head, and Jason felt a tremor from the bottom of his heart. There is no doubt that once one is hit by this golden light, one will definitely die or not. At the last moment, Jason swung the heavy sword in his hand. Chong! Jason's whole body was like lightning, rushing into the boundary of the death maze. And then, several figures shot out of the boundaries of the death maze one after another. The cold eyes of the golden-horned beast stared coldly at everyone present. Instead of continuing to approach, it turned around and left quietly, instantly disappearing into the mountain forest shrouded in red mist. "Are you okay?" Reno's concerned voice came over, and he looked at Jason nervously. The speed of the golden light before was so fast that he had no time to react. "I'm fine." Jason shook his head, and then looked at his father worriedly. He saw that Reno didn't have any injuries on his body, so he felt relieved. "What's going on?" Jason stood at the edge of the death maze, panting slightly. Even now, he was still frightened. Just now, Jason saw the coldness and ruthlessness in the eyes of the golden-horned beast, and immediately there was a dim light shot toward him. He himself couldn't believe that he could survive, but strangely he was not injured at all. Jason looked at the black heavy sword in his hand and the vast majority of people present. His heart was full of doubts. The attack of an 8th order emperor-level spiritual beast cannot be that weak. "What's going on? I'm not dead?" Someone asked in confusion, with a trembling tone. These people were not killed in the previous attack by the golden-horned giant beast. "My arm," a voice said in pain. Jason looked around and realized that not everyone was fine. Many people were slightly injured in the previous attack by the golden-horned giant beast. Manfred was lucky. Before the golden-horned giant beast attacked, he was thrown into the boundary of the death maze by Nixon and escaped. One calamity. The most pitiful thing is Linus of the Carl family, the thin, dark man who was always against Jason and Reno. When the golden-horned giant beast killed 2 people and attacked with 1 horn, he was killed as a wood type. The suppression was the worst. He was at the end, he just ran away without resisting, and as a result, his entire left arm was shattered into pieces and turned into nothingness. Now, of the 14 people who set out at the beginning, only Daimler and Nixon from the Perret family, as well as Manfred, Ronald and Pierre from the Curie family, Herbert and the Bella family are left. Clara, Reagan from the Kitahara family, Nicholas from the Cage family, Linus from the Carl family, plus Renaud and Jason, there were 12 people in total. 8th level Emperor level spiritual beasts. How could an 8th level Emperor level spiritual beast appear? Someone in the crowd made a sound in fear. The 8 major families have controlled the territory of chaos for many years, and they come here to explore every 8 years. Usually in the special months when the poisonous fog dissipates, no spiritual beasts above the 7th level have ever been found. This time, not only did the 7th level spiritual beasts appear, even the 8th order golden-horned giant beast appeared, which shocked them greatly. If they had known this earlier, they would never have ventured there easily even if there was a spiritual treasure. As 7th level imperial spiritual masters, they are the backbone of a family. If they die, the entire family will be doomed. Just like Patriarch Calvin of the Coolidge family and Habits of the Rona family, they fell under the hoofs and claws of the golden-horned beast. 2 of the 8 major families that had lasted for hundreds of years in the Chaos territory died instantly. Patriarch, after everyone returns, the Coolidge family and the Rona family will probably also erase their names from the top forces in the territory of Chaos. Stop talking nonsense. Now that we are all here, we can only move forward. Does anyone else want to go back? Herbert also had a gloomy face. Everyone fell silent and began to sit cross-legged to treat their injuries. Herbert was right. Once they got here, they could only move forward. Huh? While everyone was silently operating spiritual healing, Jason was observing the death maze. It was a tall building like a mountain, gray and white, with a rectangular bottom, thousands of meters high, and 4 sides. It is tens of thousands of meters long, with a rhombus-shaped spire on top. On the outermost gray wall, there are some complex spiritual patterns engraved, which are connected together like formations. After seeing these weird spiritual patterns, Jason first frowned, and then a look of extreme shock appeared on his face. There was inexplicable horror on his face. 9 spirits chi gathering formation. Jason was stunned for a moment. No wonder he felt so familiar when he saw the map Gandalf gave him. This so-called death maze is not a maze at all, but is based on the most profound formation in elixir science, the 9 spirits chi gathering formation. Become. In this world, the most noble profession is the spiritual medicine master, and the second most noble profession is the spiritual master. These are the 2 most noble professional systems in the Stern continent. However, in addition to spiritual medicine masters and spiritual masters, Stern continent also has a large number of professional systems, such as spiritual craftsmen, alchemists, spiritual pattern masters, animal tamers, etc. Each profession has its own inheritance. Spirit craftsmen to create spiritual weapons, alchemists are involved in all walks of life. Beast tamers tame spiritual beasts to serve humans, and among them, spiritual pattern masters build spiritual arrays and engrave spiritual patterns and runes on spiritual weapons. Career. For example, the gravity circle engraved by Jason on the gravity pendant, if divided into details, belongs to the category of spiritual pattern master. Spiritual power formations are divided into many types according to their functions and construction. However, most of the formations are generally used for the training of spiritual masters, but this 9 spirit energy gathering formation is extremely rare. The profound magic circle, controlled by the pharmacist. The most critical part of the elixir's preparation is materials, and medicinal materials, as a very important category of materials, have always caused headaches for most elixirs. Many ingredients for the preparation of elixirs must require a certain medicinal material to be of a certain age, such as longan stone. The price of a 10-year-old longanite and a 20-year-old longanite are very different. The efficacy of the 2 is for the same elixir. It can't be compared at all. Like the dreamglass stem, which grows 1 section every 10 years, it must wait until the 10th section grows in the 100th year before it will produce the purple-red liquid that can be used to prepare the ultimate potion. It takes hundreds of years for the ice spirit sacred fruit to grow and mature. These have seriously affected the preparation of elixirs. Many times, elixir masters can only look for substitutes for this material. However, as the main material, most of the substitutes have low preparation efficiency and poor efficacy. It has many disadvantages such as side effects. And this 9 spirits chi gathering formation is the formation that solves the problem of medicinal materials. After the 9 spirits chi gathering formation is built, it can absorb the spiritual elements from the surrounding heaven and earth, causing all the medicinal materials in the formation to grow faster. Depending on the structural complexity of the formation and the materials used to construct the formation, its effects will be different. In his previous life, Jason built a simple 9 spirits chi gathering formation on Halloween Mountain. However, this simple 9 spirits chi gathering formation cost Jason a considerable part of his original savings. Its core part was made of driven by 9 8th level spiritual cores. The growth rate of medicinal materials in the formation is equivalent to 10 years in the outside world, which is incredible. The huge building in front of us is obviously the basis for constructing the 9 spirits chi gathering formation. The spirit patterns on it are extremely huge, and the materials required to carve the spirit patterns are an astonishing number. The most important thing is the number in the middle. As for the energy-driving device, Jason even suspected that the 9 9th-level spiritual cores might not be able to drive such a huge 9-spirit energy-gathering array. Compared with the 9 spirits chi-gathering formation that Jason spent a lot of effort to build in his previous life, the difference between a small hut in the countryside and a high-rise building in the city is equivalent to the difference between cloud and mud. But what shocked Jason the most was not this. The formation of Jason's 9 spirits chi-gathering formation in his previous life was obtained from the ancient ruins where he obtained the formula of the spirit god art and the fire god's liquid, and the spirit art that recorded the 9 spirits chi gathering formation showed that the 9 spirits gathering formation was the chi gathering formation was created by the master of the spirit god art. No one in the world understood it except him. However, now that such a huge 9 spirits chi gathering formation appeared in front of him, he was shocked. Is that God killing Nadim, the founder of the spiritual god art and the 9 spirits chi gathering formation? Jason frowned, extremely confused in his mind, but there was a faint feeling in his heart that it didn't seem like it. Okay, let's go. Just when Jason was confused, Herbert stood up and spoke. Everyone who was sitting cross-legged stood up and nodded. The injuries on everyone's body were basically healed. At this moment, Jason sensitively felt an extremely eager gaze falling on him. Not far away, Linus of the Carl family looked at him with fire in his eyes, and then walked over. Renaud looked at the other party coldly, with undisguised murderous intent and warning in his cold eyes. Senior Lay, I don't mean any harm. Linus stopped a few meters in front of Jason and Reno, with a smile on his face. Master Jace, there are many dangers in this maze of death. As a master, it is too dangerous for me to be protected by only Senior Lay. Why don't I just stay by your side, Master? Linus was black and thin. He tried his best to show kindness on his face and said with a smile. What are you doing? Jason couldn't help but was stunned. Linus's behavior was too strange. He is not an idiot. Although everyone present seems to be extremely harmonious and can jointly resist danger when encountering danger, that is only because everyone has come to the maze of death and has not found the treasure yet. Jason believed that as soon as a jealous treasure appeared, a fight would definitely begin, so he did not trust anyone in his heart. But when he saw Linus's broken left arm, Jason suddenly understood. The people present knew that the regeneration potion he prepared could regenerate Renaud's broken arm. After all, when Jason competed with Pierre in the trading center, Renaud's right arm was still broken, but a few hours after he prepared the imperial potion, when the Perret family came to provoke him, his father's arms were already intact. Well, as long as someone is careful, they can roughly guess what happened. Now that he lost his left arm in the attack of the golden-horned beast, Linus immediately placed his hope on Jason, and even felt extremely regretful for his previous unfriendly actions towards Jason and Renaud. Get out of the way, Jason said indifferently. Although Linus's motives seemed extremely simple at this time, Jason did not want to place his safety on anyone. Linus smiled and backed away a little, but always followed Jason not far away. Everyone walked forward together, but Linus didn't get too close. Jason couldn't say anything to Linus, who didn't want to give up, so he had to let him go. On this huge gray wall, every few hundred meters in length, there is a square hole several meters high, and at a height of several thousand meters, it is also covered with holes one after another. Jason, who knew that this death maze was actually the 9 spirits chi gathering formation, naturally knew that these holes were the channels through which the 9 spirits chi gathering formation absorbed external spiritual energy and transformed it. However, there was a look of surprise and curiosity on his face, as if he was seeing it for the first time, without any flaws. Everyone moved forward and finally stopped in front of a hole. This is where our adventure group entered that time, Manfred affirmed. The 57th hole, from left to right on the north side, is correct. Jason and Renaud looked at each other and nodded secretly. Manfred was not lying. This was also described on the map given by Gandalf. Manfred, take the lead. Daimler said, follow us, don't get separated. Everyone entered the hole one by one, and what caught Jason's eyes was a gray passage. It is about 5 meters high and wide, leading deep into the depths, with no end as far as the eye can see. On the walls around the passage, a large number of spiritual pattern formations are densely engraved, which shows the vastness of its engineering. The entire passage seems to be made of some special material. There is no light source, but it is quite bright, which does not affect the vision at all. Moreover, in this passage, Jason's spiritual consciousness, which originally covered a very wide area, is in this passage, can only spread to a distance of tens of meters, and cannot sense things farther away. Jason knew that this was because the solution for carving the 9 spirits chi gathering array's spiritual patterns was mixed with a large amount of spiritual materials, which would greatly interfere with the spiritual master's spiritual consciousness. Herbert and others seemed to have known this situation for a long time. Not even the slightest bit surprised. The group of people walked carefully behind the passage. After walking a certain distance, they were surrounded by a large number of passages extending to other places, extending in all directions, and there were even passages going up and down. Manfred held the map in his hand, sweating slightly on his forehead, looking for the correct passage, based on his memories. Every time he reached a turning point, he had to observe it carefully for a long time. Herbert and the others who followed closely behind did not dare to disturb him, and looked nervously at Manfred in front of them, ready to take action immediately if the other party made the slightest move. People's hearts are sinister. If Manfred suddenly got into a corner while no one was paying attention, and then circled around a few times, in this channel where spiritual consciousness can only radiate for hundreds of meters, I'm afraid everyone would be trapped. There is no way out of this maze until death. For thousands of years, countless people have been lost in this maze of death and have never been able to get out. Among the crowd, Jason felt a little amused. He was not nervous and seemed extremely relaxed. This was not because Jason had the map given by Gandalf. In fact, this 9 spirits chi gathering formation is not actually a maze. It is just because there are too many passages extending in all directions. For such a large building, it is estimated that there are at least hundreds of thousands of different passages. According to the formation method, the entire 9 spirits chi gathering formation is there are only 9 exits in the deepest part, and the rest of the passages are dead ends, so it feels like a maze. Even without a map, Jason, who knew the 9 spirits chi gathering formation very well, could find the final exit based on the spirit patterns on the walls of the passage. Jason had to say that 8 years ago, the Desert Fox Adventure Group was very lucky to be able to find one of the only 9 exits among the hundreds of thousands of passages. We're here, we're at the exit. I don't know how long it took, but after going around the endless passageway, after a turning point, a light suddenly appeared in front of me, and everyone was filled with joy. Whoosh, 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 everyone rushed out instantly.